Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, postgraduate students, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the second lecture of Academic English 1 for the first semester of the academic year 2020-2021. The source of our lectures, as we mentioned in the first lecture, is the book of academic skills, reading, writing, and study skills, level 2. As we mentioned also that this book contains 10 units. In the first semester, we should cover the first 5 units. Each unit contains 3 main parts, which are reading, writing, and vocabulary. And in the last lecture, we focused on the reading part. Specifically, we covered the first part, which is following instructions, how to follow instruction to fill an application. The second part of reading skills will be covered in the second lecture. So, in this lecture, we will focus on reading methods. On page 6, specifically exercise 7, they ask us to read the handout for new students about reading, then answers the questions. Let us go to the handout and read. We have 5 minutes to read the handout. Let us read together. Effective reading. During your course, you will do a lot of reading. It is essential that you learn how to be an effective and efficient reader in order to make the best of your study time. Learning to be a good reader takes practice. You need to develop different strategies or methods of reading. Skimming. Sometimes you will read just to get a general idea of a text. This is skim reading. First, identify your reason for reading. For example, to decide whether an article meets your needs or perhaps to understand a writer's attitude. To do this, read the text very quickly. Don't worry about reading and understanding everything. Instead, look particularly at the first and last paragraphs and the first and last sentences of paragraphs. These often summarize the main points. Scanning. Sometimes you will read quickly to find a particular piece of information. For example, a statistic, a date, a person's name, or the name of a place. Again, you do not need to read every word to find this information. Instead, scan the text using a finger or a pencil to move quickly through the words. You could time yourself to see how long it takes you to find the information. Always try to improve your speed. Intensive reading. Sometimes you read for every detail. For example, a description of a process, the results of a scientific study, or a set literature text. To do this, take your time, stop and think about what you are reading. Have you understood the text? You may need to read the text more than once in order to make notes or highlight important points. For future reference, this is called intensive reading or study reading. Extensive reading. Sometimes you will read for pleasure, perhaps as extra research or purely for interest. You may concentrate, but you do not have to worry about detail. This is extensive reading. We do not always read the same kinds of texts in the same way, and we often use more than one method of reading for a single text. Your reason for reading will help you decide how to read. I spent about 3 minutes in reading the handout, and in the first reading, I just had an idea about the general idea of the handout. And also, now we can answer the first 3 questions. The first question is, which 2 ways of reading are the quickest? The answer is skimming and scanning are the quickest ways of reading. If we couldn't answer this question in the first time, we can go again through the handout to find which the method of reading is the quickest. Let's go to the second question. The second question is, which way would you read for enjoyment? From the handout, we remember that the last method of reading, which was extensive reading, is using for enjoyment or pleasure. If we couldn't remember this information or answer this question, also we can go back again through the handout to find the answer of this question through using scanning. Question 3. Which way of reading is the slowest? Intensive reading is the slowest method. Extensive also sometimes is very slow type of reading. We have extra questions in order to get more information about the methods of reading. The first question, what is the reading type is suitable for looking for the year of construction of the first bridge in the world? This question is about the year of construction, is about a date. In order to find a date, then the suitable reading type is scanning. Let's go to the second question. What is the suitable reading type for finding the city where the first bridge in the world was constructed? This question is about the name of the city. The name of the city can be found by using scanning. Right. Question 3. What is the suitable reading type for following the methodology of a lab test? So we have a lab test and we need to know what is the methodology we should follow in this test. This kind of information can be gotten using intensive reading. Question 4. What is the suitable reading type to read an email from the university you are waiting a response from it? So we are waiting an email from a university. The best reading type is is skimming, and then intensive reading. Skimming is used to find the email from a specific university. Then, if we found this email, we can use intensive reading in order to read the information or the contents of the email. The last question. What is the suitable reading type to find the number of vehicles registered in the official office in Iraq? In this kind of questions, it's asked about a number of vehicles. It means is about a statistic. A statistic such as number of vehicles, percentage of something. This kind of information can be gotten using intensive reading or scanning. Scanning is the best method. Now we have exercise 8. Choose 5 examples of reading materials from exercise 5 on page 5. Why and how do you read? Students, I ask you to go back to page 5, specifically to exercise 5. You will find 10 types of materials. Choose only 5. Choose only 5 of them and write in front each type of material why you are using this method of material and how. Why it means what the purpose of reading this type of material. How it means what is the method of reading. For example, textbook is used to find a relevant chapter or to take notes. How we can read the textbooks? We can, in order to find a relevant chapter, we can use scan. We can use scanning, scan content page in order to find the relevant chapter. Or we can use intensive reading in order to take notes. So, the method of reading is different according to the reason or the purpose of reading. Let's go together to some of the 10 methods of materials, and this is an example of answers. You may have different answers. This is no problem. This is your opinion. Let's start with textbooks. Textbooks, the purpose is to make notes. As we said before, in order to take notes, we need to read intensively. Novels is very long story. Usually, we read novels for pleasure, for enjoyment. Then, the method of reading is read extensively. To read emails, reading emails is different. The purpose is different from person to person. Sometimes we read emails for messages from friends. So we are waiting a message from a friend. Then we need to scan in order to find the message, then read intensively to find the needed information. Search engine finds. Usually it is used to find information, and the best method is scanning. Reading journals usually used for pleasure or to look for interesting articles. In order to looking for interesting articles, we need to skim the articles inside the journal in order to choose the interesting articles and then read extensively. Reports. In order to read reports, we have a reason, for example, to find information, and then we can skim then intensive reading. Timetables. Sometimes we need to read the timetables to find the time of something. For example, the time of our lecture, the time of a train, and reading timetables, usually we need to use scanning. Dictionary. The main purpose of using dictionary is to find a word, and the main reading method is scanning. Dictionary, we couldn't, it is hard to read a dictionary intensively, so scanning is the best method. Instruction manual to find out how something works. STH is abbreviation of something, and this kind of material needs intensive reading. So these answers are examples, and as I said before, you do not have to have the same answers because answers are different from person to person. Now we are moving to read exercise 9 in the same page 6. Look back at exercises 2 and 4 on pages 4 and 5. In which exercise did you skim and in which did you scan? So he asked us to go back to pages 4 and 5, specifically to exercises 2 and 4, in order to say in which exercise we use skimming and which of them we use scanning. Let us have a look on the read study skill on the same page. Study skill reading methods. You usually have a reason for reading something. That reason changes the way you read and the time you spend on a text. Think about what you want from the text and decide the best way to get it. For example, skim a journal to find an article of interest. Scan an article for a specific information, such as dates, names, and statistics. Read relevant parts of an article intensively to make notes. We are now on page 2, specifically exercise 2, and as you remember, in the first lecture, we did exercise 2, and we answered the 4 questions. The first question was about the labeling the documents. We have 4 types of documents: passport, formal letter, informal letter, and application form. And in the first question, they ask us to label the documents. So in this question, we need to use skimming in order to know which one is a passport, which one is a formal letter, and so on. Regarding question 2, where is Simon going? And also question 3, what he's going to study? And question 4, who is John? These 3 questions we need scanning in order to answer these questions. Now let's go to page 4, specifically exercise 4. Read the documents on page 4. Use the information to complete the application form for Simon. As you remember, in the first lecture, we did this exercise. We have an application form, and in this exercise, we have a look to the documents of Simon, to these 4 documents, in order to fill the application form. And to do this, we scanned the documents in order to get the needed information. So in this exercise, we used scanning. We did covered the contents of lecture 2. Thank you for your attention, and let's go to lecture 3.